This episode explores historical, cultural, and philosophical perspectives for educational purposes. The interpretations and opinions expressed are based on academic and historical research and are not intended to represent or criticize any modern government, individual, or belief system.
If you really want to understand the China we see today, its incredible ambition, its technology, its constant tension with control, we've got to look back. And I don't mean just a few decades. We need to go back 1,000 years to a golden age that still echoes in the nation's memory and, honestly, still shapes its dreams for the future. You know, this line, it's not just some beautiful piece of prose from a famous novel. It's basically the rhythm, the very heartbeat of Chinese history. Think about it like this. In the West, the story is often about different civilizations. Rome falls, and eventually something totally new takes its place. But China's story, it's different. It's one continuous civilization just caught in this endless, repeating cycle of order and chaos, unity and division. So what was the logic behind this endless cycle? Well, for thousands of years, it was all tied to this incredibly powerful idea called the mandate of heaven. The idea was pretty simple. Your right to rule wasn't permanent. It wasn't guaranteed. You had to earn it by governing well. If you became corrupt or incompetent, you'd lose the mandate, and boom, a new dynasty would rise up to take your place. It's a concept that has literally shaped empires there for over 3,000 years. So just keep that in mind as we dive in. This is a huge difference. We're not talking about one empire dying and a new one being born from the ashes, like with Rome. Nope. We're talking about one single civilization's continuous story. A story that carries the memory of every single high point and every devastating low. Okay, so if we want to get a handle on China's ambitions today, we've got to zero in on its most brilliant cycle. A moment about 1,000 years ago when China was, without a doubt, the most advanced, most sophisticated civilization on the entire planet. And that brings us to the Song Dynasty. The Song Dynasty, which ran from 960 to 1279, was so much more than just another chapter in a history book. It was a full-blown renaissance of art, science, and culture that happened centuries before the one in Europe. Seriously, this was a time when the Chinese set out to build what they hoped would be the most enlightened society the world had ever seen. And if you want a perfect picture of what this era was all about, just look at the capital city, Kaifeng. This wasn't some walled-off fortress just for the rich and powerful. No way. It was a huge, bustling, open city. It was so alive that there wasn't even a curfew. Life just buzzed day and night. It had this incredible restaurant culture, tons of shops, and even early versions of fast food for workers who were on the go. And the scale of it? I mean, it was just mind-boggling. With over 1 million people, Kaifeng was the largest city on Earth. To put that into perspective for you, London at the same time had maybe 15,000 people. Kaifeng was the New York, the London, the Tokyo of its day all rolled into one. And all this energy, this urban buzz, it just fueled an absolute explosion of creativity. The Song Dynasty invented movable-type printing 400 years before Gutenberg in Europe. They perfected the magnetic compass for navigating the seas. They refined gunpowder to be used in weapons. And they built these gigantic, mind-blowingly complex astronomical clocks powered by water. And you know, this wasn't just about gadgets and gizmos. It was about the brilliant minds behind them. People like Su Song, the guy who engineered that clock, were true polymaths. They were scholars, artists, and scientists. This quote just nails it. The point is, the European Renaissance had figures that were basically echoes of the genius that had already come and gone in China centuries earlier. But remember that cycle we talked about? Everything long united will fall apart. After centuries of just unbelievable brilliance, the Song Dynasty's golden age came to a sudden, brutal, violent end. This quote from a poet who actually lived through the fall of Kaifeng, it just captures the absolute shock. For the people of the Song, it must have felt like their entire world was shattered overnight. The invaders, first the Jurchen and later the Mongols, they seemed to just drop out of the sky, and the most sophisticated society on Earth just crumbled. The mandate of heaven was lost. So the lesson here, and it's a lesson that got burned deep into China's collective memory, is that even when you're at the very top, even when you're the most brilliant civilization on Earth, you are still fragile. Even a golden age can be lost. And this memory of reaching such greatness and then losing it so tragically, it's a huge driver of the national psyche today.
So for the next 800 years or so, through all the dynasties that followed, that memory, the memory of that incredible high and the trauma of that devastating fall, it became a core part of China's identity. And that right there brings us to today. The dream of that golden age never really died. In a lot of ways, modern China is very consciously trying to reclaim the top spot it held back during the Song Dynasty. And the parallels are they're stunning when you lay them out like this. The Song Dynasty's tech supremacy with things like the compass, that's echoed today in the race for leadership in AI and semiconductors. The Song's cultural confidence and influence, that's mirrored in global outreach programs like the Confucius Institutes. And their incredible economic boom, well, that's reflected in the modern reforms that unleashed the world's second largest economy.
But here's where it gets really complicated. This ambition creates this huge central tension, a paradox really, that's been at the heart of China for over 2,000 years. It's this fundamental conflict between two totally different ways of getting to the top: open innovation versus total centralized control.
So on one side, you've got the Song model, right? That's the flourishing, bottom-up society where amazing ideas just bubbled up organically from smart, creative people. But on the other side, you've got the model of the Qin dynasty, the guys who first unified China. And their path, it was all about brutal, top-down control.
Yeah, the Qin, they ran on this philosophy called legalism, and honestly, it's terrifying. It wasn't about right and wrong. It was about one thing: absolute state power. They unified China using fear. If you were incompetent, it wasn't just a bad day at the office, it was a crime. You could be tortured or even killed. They built incredible things like the Great Wall, for sure, but they did it through force, not free-flowing creativity.
And this is the absolute key takeaway. This 2,000-year-old conflict, this tug of war between the open, creative spirit of the Song and the iron fist of the Qin, it's not ancient history. It is happening right now in modern China. I mean, just look around. You see this massive drive to lead the world in AI and semiconductors, with the government pouring in billions of dollars. That's the Song-style ambition, right? The dream of a new golden age. But at the exact same time, you see control tightening everywhere. Intense censorship online, massive civilian surveillance, and even a social credit system to monitor how people behave. So that leads us right to the final huge question. What we're seeing is China trying to do both. They're trying to have the innovative genius of the Song and the unifying control of the Qin, all at the same time. And so that leaves us with this massive unanswered question. Can you really build a society that fosters the kind of wild, free-thinking creativity that made the Song Dynasty so brilliant, while at the same time tightening the screws with top-down political control? Is it even possible to have both? Or, as history seems to suggest, does one of those paths eventually have to crush the other? Honestly, that is the defining question for China in the 21st century.
Echoes of the past, visions of tomorrow.